You are all welcome to today's tutorial. Today is the part 2 of our series of layouts for OET writing. In our previous tutorial, we discussed how to write the address, date, greeting, and the heading of your letter. Today, we'll be discussing how to write a good introduction. As we all know that an introduction of any essay or letter is very crucial, and the way you write your introduction will make the reader to be interested in reading your work. Now, how to write a good introduction? For you to write a good introduction, you really need to understand the task. Usually, OET gives you 5 minutes to go through your task, and the way you go through your task, the way you make use of this time is very, very important and critical. So you don't just start from the beginning reading it down. No, you go straight down first to the writing task and read. This will help you to know what they want you to do, whether they want you to write a referral letter, a discharge letter, or a transfer letter. Then the content of the introduction is also very important. There are 2 points there must be in your introduction. Number 1 point is what you've done for this patient. That's the diagnosis, what the patient was managed for, what type of treatment did you give to this patient, and what has been the patient's progress so far. Then secondly, you also need to explain what you want the addressee to do for this patient. These 2 points must be in your introduction, and that means your introduction should be nothing less than 2 sentences, and these 2 sentences must contain these 2 points. Your introduction should not contain any other points, and your introduction should not be less than these 2 points that have been highlighted here. Now, the step that you have to take first is to read the letter part of the task that is given to you as I've described, just to know the type of letter you want to write, whether it's a referral or a discharge letter. Then read the plan for today's visit. That will help you to know why you are referring this patient. Are you referring this patient because you can no longer manage this patient? Are you referring this patient because the case is deteriorating? It will also help you to know what you want the addressee to do. Do you want the addressee to do surgery for the patient? Do you want the addressee to continue management, to evaluate, or to assess your patient? Then you can also skim through your letter just to know. You can also skim through just to know if there are any other major thing that was done for this patient you would need to include in your introduction. Then you organize your writing and then write. Now, let's go practical now. This is a case note of Miss Kyla Uma, and from the case note, you are a doctor at Greenville Private Practice, and you are assessing a 65-year-old woman who believes she has acute exacerbation of rheumatoid arthritis. Anyway, when a case note is given to you, this is not the first thing that you are supposed to do. The first thing you are supposed to do is to first go down to the writing task. In the writing task says, using the information given in the case note, write a referral letter to Dr. Lynn Walker, a consultant rheumatologist at First Consultant Hospital, 63 Driveway, Melbourne. Now, from this writing task, it's obvious that you are writing a referral letter. Then you will now go back to today's visit. And in your today's visit, our interest is in the assessment and treatment. From the assessment, you are querying worsening rheumatoid arthritis. So that's what the patient is being managed for. And from your treatment, you are referring this patient to a rheumatologist for assessment. So you see, from this basic information now, you'll be able to know the type of letter you are to write. You'll be able to know the condition, what you manage this patient for, and what the reason why you are referring this patient. You'll be able to know what you want the addressee to do for this patient, that's to assess this patient. Then you can now go back to the case note for any other major reason why you are referring this patient. Now look at this point here. Look at this point here from the presenting complaint. He said he presented with pains in the wrist joint and digit for the past 6 months. Now severe, and it's not relieved by regular Panadol and diclofenac cream. That means you'll be managing this patient, and this patient has been refractory to the treatment. And again, here you can discover that you change the treatment to the treatment to naproxen instead of the Panadol and diclofenac that this patient was taking. Still, the patient still came back with the same thing. That means this patient is not responding to your treatment. So what are we now to do? How do we now write this? So let's recall that these 2 points must be in your letter, that the patient, you must describe what you want the patient, what you've done for the patient diagnosis, and then you must describe or explain what you want to be done for the patient. Now let's write this introduction. Let's write it this way. Thank you for seeing Miss Uma, a typist, who presented with clinical features suggestive of worsening rheumatoid arthritis not responsive to analgesics. She is being referred to you for further evaluation and management. Now, this my introduction has 2 sentences. The first sentence described what I've done for the patient, that the patient has been on antibiotics and on analgesics and is not responsive to analgesic. What the patient presented with, or what I'm managing this patient for, worsening rheumatoid arthritis. Why am I referring this patient? Probably because the patient is not responsive to the analgesics that I've given this patient. Then your second statement is now explaining what you want the addressee to do. You are referring this patient, is written here, this is a referral letter. You are referring this patient for the addressee to evaluate this patient and also manage this patient. So you can see, this my introduction is very precise, straight to the point. I didn't add any unnecessary information. You can say, oh, why did I not add the patient's occupation in the introduction? Anyway, ideally, it's not necessary adding patient occupation in the introduction, but I added a typist because from the symptoms, the patients have been complaining of pains in the fingers and the wrists, and this patient would have been typing every day. So it's the present symptoms or the exacerbation of these patient symptoms might be due to the patient job. So that's why I added it here. I can decide to remove it and it will not change anything. Then I can also decide to write my introduction this way. I'm writing to refer Mrs. Uma for your expert assessment and treatment. She presented with signs and symptoms in keeping with worsening rheumatoid arthritis refractory to treatment. Now, here again, my introduction has 2 sentences. But here, the first sentence, first of all, explain what I want the addressee to do for my patient. And the second sentence now describes what the patient presented with, what I've done for the patient, and why I'm referring this patient, because the patient is refractory to treatment. So this is how your introduction should be. This is how you should go about your introduction. There is really no need adding unnecessary information because every other thing will be discussed in the body of the letter. Now let's recap from yesterday's from the previous tutorial. From the previous tutorial, we describe how we write our address. And if you go to the case, if you go back to the case notes, let's go back to the case notes. You can see from the case note, you are writing to Dr. Lynn Walker. So I wrote Dr. Lynn Walker, a consultant rheumatologist. I remove this article and just say consultant rheumatologist to be the second line because there is a comma here after Lynn Walker. Then at first consultant hospital, I will remove this preposition. They would have just added comma again and say first consultant, but they use at. So that means this first consultant hospital should be in another line. Then the added comma and say 63 driveway should be in another line. Then the added comma and say Melbourne. So Melbourne should not be the last line. So that's just how to write your introduction. Then after the introduction, you leave a paragraph and write your date. I decided to use this format for my date, and I also maintain the format here in my heading. So after the date, you leave a paragraph and write your greeting, and I'm using standard method of writing. That's why I added comma. If I'm using the modern method, I will not add comma, but I should stick to the rule of using the modern method. Then after the greeting, I left a paragraph before writing the heading, and after the heading, I left a paragraph before writing the introduction. So that's basically how to go through your writing step by step. So our next tutorial will be on how to write the body of the paragraphs. So thank you for your time, and please don't forget to like, share, subscribe to my channel, and click on the notification bell. This will help you to get alerts anytime I upload any video. Thank you, and I wish you the very best in your coming fourth OET exams. Bye.